horror movie opinions that will probably start fights in the comments. I will punt the living out of that kid. Before all of you Kubrick fans, grab your pitchforks. Hello, creeps. Andy here. You know when you can't sleep at like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're Googling very strange things? I was just on my weird Google hunt and I ended up on this website. This is a Buzzfeed website and it is called 21 Controversial Horror Movie Opinions That Will Probably Start Fights in the Comments. So I thought, I have a few new subscribers, let's just piss everyone off today. So I wanted to go through these and talk about my opinions, but I also want to know your opinions on these too. Obviously we're not going to agree on everything. That's the beauty of art, is that it is subjective and we all have different opinions on it. But let's go through these and see how many we agree upon, how many we viciously disagree on. I just think it would be kind of a fun video. So let's start at number 1. Sidney Prescott is not only the best final girl, but the best protagonist of any horror movie. I don't really think that this is like a hot take. I think most people agree that she is at least one of the top 5 best final girls in any horror movie. She's just a badass. She survives anything, and in the later movies she goes and seeks out the new ghost face. She doesn't go running and hiding. I think that's honestly why we love Scream movies so much, is for Sidney and, you know, the gang. And honestly, this might be controversial. The reason why I didn't love Scream 5 was because there was no time for character development. So any of the new characters, didn't care about him. Kill him off, don't care. Because there just wasn't enough time to get to know him, whereas the first movie, you really connect with Sidney over the loss of her mother, over what she's gone through, the trial, like how traumatic all of that must have been. You really feel for her, and then you're rooting along with her. She is definitely one of the top final girls. The thing is, of any horror movie, like I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are other amazing final girls that I absolutely love. I don't know about any horror movie, but for sure the top, I think we can all agree, top 5. This one is going to be controversial. The A Nightmare on Elm Street remake is the only remotely scary film in the whole franchise. This one I disagree with. I think Wes Craven's Final Nightmare is very creepy, particularly because of the young boy in it. I don't know. I have such a weird love-hate with this movie because I feel like at the very least, even if you hate this film, I feel like it wasn't just a money grab. It wasn't just a director who's like, I want to make some money, I guess I'll just do another remake. I really feel like the people that were in charge of this movie cared about the franchise. They really tried to make the new Freddy Krueger look like an actual burn victim with, like, you know, the cartilage missing from his nose and things like that, and his ears, I think. They really tried to follow Wes Craven's original story where he, I'm not going to say it on here because I don't want to get demonetized, but, you know, he wanted the kids to be portrayed in a different way, but ended up changing it to them just being for Freddy Krueger to be a child murderer instead of something else. I do think that if they would have made the movie not a Nightmare on Elm Street remake and just made a different character, I think it would have been a pretty cool movie. Because there are some cool scenes in that movie. Although this isn't Robert Englund, he does play a cool role. He does have like a creepier, darker side. He's not like a silly, goofy killer, which is what Freddy Krueger is. I mean, most of the movies are quite campy, but I don't know that it's the scariest. I don't agree that it's the scariest movie in the franchise. Possessed/killer dolls aren't scary. So here's what I will say. When you're young, fuck yes they are. I have been writing horror stories my whole life since I can remember, and the first horror story that I still have that I wrote is from 3rd grade, and it's about, I had these porcelain dolls that creeped me out, but I kept asking my mom to buy more. I don't know why. I even put them in the closet because they freaked me out so much I didn't want to have them in my bedroom, and I wrote a story about my dolls coming to life and killing me. So I would say when I was younger and I watched a Chucky movie, that freaked me out. When I was younger and I watched a Puppet Masters movie, that freaked me out. Yeah, I would say that that's creepy when you're younger. Obviously, when you're older, it's not so scary, but I think it's like that turning point when the doll becomes real that's scary. I wouldn't say that it's the rest of the film that's scary, but it's like that moment, being a kid, knowing that you have dolls, and just seeing that, where they change from an inanimate object to, you know, an inevitable killing machine. That really freaked me out. Rosemary's Baby is an awful movie with an even more awful twist. I don't really know what they mean by awful. Like, yes, obviously the plot of the movie is awful. Like, yeah, that of course. but fantastic movie, fantastic book. I love Rosemary's Baby. I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't read the book, it is quite like the movie, but it is amazing. Honestly, one of my favorite horror films, I think. But I think the reason it is so awful is thinking of the reality of this happening, not, you know, so much the satanic baby, but I mean, everyone turning on you and not being able to trust anyone you love, your doctors, your husbands, your neighbor, husbands, multiple, I don't know. On that basic level of plot, minus the satanic stuff, horrible movie. But yeah, I don't know, awful movie with an awful twist. I'm not really sure what they mean by that, but very much so disagree. It's a fantastic movie, a fantastic book. Foreign horror movies are far better than anything Hollywood has ever put on. So there are obviously a lot of foreign horror films that I love, but there's a lot of horror films in the US that I love as well. I think that they are different, and it's very interesting learning about other people's cultures and the way that, like, for example, Japanese horror films portray ghosts. It is just like a peek inside someone else's culture, and I absolutely love finding and watching foreign horror films. But that being said, I've watched some really shitty foreign horror films too. I don't think that you can blanket statement this. I don't think that it's like all US horror movies suck and all foreign horror movies are the same. I will say the movies that we steal from other countries, yeah, the originals are usually better. But that being said, some of them are also weird. Ours are intended for an audience. Like, I think if you watch some of the original films, I think you'd be like, this is strange. I've seen some weird ones where I'm like, this is weird. And I think that they're just obviously more intended for the US audience. So I don't know. I don't really disagree with this one, but I do agree that there are some fantastic foreign horror films. And if you guys want me to do a video just on foreign horror films, I would absolutely love to do that for you, so let me know. The Mist was ruined by its ending. The ending of the movie? Are you crazy? This is interesting because I did an entire movie versus book on The Mist. I will leave that video linked down below. And I had quite contradictory opinions on this from you guys, and I thought it was really interesting. So let me explain. The ending of the book is more mild than the ending of the movie. It's more open for interpretation. There is no closure on The Mist. Some people see that as a more heartbreaking tale because there is no end in sight. In the movie, it's much more heartbreaking for the people that we've been with, but it's a lot better for humanity as a whole. So it depends how you feel. I personally love the ending of the Mist movie. I remember the first time I watched it, this was my reaction. No. I loved the ending. I don't think it ruined it at all. I think one of you guys even said that Stephen King prefers the ending to the movie than the ending of his book, The Mist. That I don't know for a fact, but I really liked the book. I really liked the movie too. But yeah, something about the ending of the movie is so heartbreaking because although it might be better as a whole for humanity, all we're kind of stuck with is these people that we've been with this whole time. So they're kind of like the ones that pull our heartstrings. So I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. Get Out and Us should not be classified as horror films. Absolutely nothing against these movies, but personally I don't consider them horror. I think they're more thrillers than horror. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of overlap with thriller and horror, right? And I guess you can argue anything with these movies. They're a bit of social commentary, they're a bit of horror, they're a bit of thriller, they're a bit of sci-fi, they're kind of a bit of everything. I don't know what the problem would be considering or classifying it as a horror movie versus like a thriller or a sci-fi. I don't know why that would be the hill that you would die on, you know? The next one is the Conjuring cinematic universe is one of the best mainstream horror franchises of all time. And this one, I have to say, no, it's not. And even the quote is, they're all so stupid and fun, I absolutely love them. Which, like, if that's what you're looking for, sure. I think there are cool things about a lot of these movies. I have watched, I think, all of them. And I think all of them, there are scenes where you're like, that's cool, that's unique, that's interesting. But do I think that they're the best franchise ever? Absolutely not. No. I think the first movie is interesting and cool and creepy. The second one, don't even get me started. No way. No way that's scaring anybody. I think that they have cool concepts, but I think that execution, and again, this is not me tearing apart anybody's movies or art. I'm not trying to do that, but I think we could talk about our own opinions. I think I could do it in a way that's not disrespectful to the people. But for example, what was the last Conjuring movie that came out? Hold on. The Devil Made Me Do It. There's a scene in that movie. It's in the previews. I'm not ruining this for you if you haven't seen it. But it's like, I don't know what it is verbatim, but basically a cop stops and there's this guy covered in blood and he's like, oh, what did you do? And he's like, I just killed someone. Something like that. The way that line was delivered was so lackluster in the movie. Like, if they would have added a pause and some like music, and they could have made that one of the best lines in a horror movie in a long time, and it just completely fell flat for me, and I'm like, what is happening? So I think some of the scenes are really cool, but I think the movies as a whole aren't really executed that well. Let me know what you guys think about the Conjuring movies. But like this person said, they're also stupid and fun. If you're in for a quick thrill, then yeah, they're entertaining. But I would much rather go back and watch a Nightmare on Elm Street series or Friday the 13th versus this absolutely any day. Now here's what I can agree with. I can get behind this. The Blair Witch Project is okay, just okay. 1000% agree. I remember this movie was so hyped up, which might be why I feel this way about it. Everyone was talking about it. It was a huge deal. I didn't watch it in theaters and I watched it at home. So that is another thing, because there are definitely differences viewing a movie at home versus in theaters. But I watched it at home and I was like, what is everyone talking? I was so confused. Yeah, I honestly, I just thought it was okay. It doesn't freak me out. It's just okay. I 100% agree with this. Not the, obviously the worst horror film ever, and you know, the creativity. Not that this was the first movie ever to do found footage, but it definitely started an onslaught of found footage horror films. The Saw franchise isn't actually that bad. Like, sure, it kind of lost the story after the third film, but they're all really fun films that I genuinely enjoy watching. Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with this one too. I like the first two, and I will go back and revisit the first two. The third one, I think it's the third one. You know, it's been a long time since I've seen these, but I think the third one's just kind of torture porn. That's all it is to me. It kind of lost the basic storyline, and even the last movie, Jigsaw, where they're trying to stitch everything together. I'm like, guys, give it up. Give it up! I think that the first two had something very special, and I think after that, it was just like, let's try to gross people out and get their money. I mean, if that's what you want, then yeah, it's a great film. But if you want something a little bit deeper than that, I think it did kind of lose its originality. Doctor Sleep is a great horror film, and it is severely underrated. Highly, 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 100,000% agree. Oh, I agree so hard with this. Doctor Sleep, so underrated. Don't know how it didn't do well at the box office. Like, let me talk about this for a second. Mike Flanagan directed this. He had so much going against him going into Doctor Sleep. One, he has to make the Stephen King fans happy with The Shining, right? Because it's the second book to The Shining. He also probably wanted to make Stephen King happy. And then he has a whole nother set of people that he has to make happy with the Kubrick fans, who are very different than the Stephen King fans. Not saying that you can't enjoy both. We'll get to that in a second, because I think there's some Shining stuff in here. He walked that line so gracefully, and I loved this movie so much. This is maybe an embarrassing thing, but this is the last movie that I cried in. It made me cry. We get to the ending of the movie, and my husband looked at me and he goes, "Are you crying?" And it was, to me, such a beautiful love letter to Stephen King that it honestly made me emotional watching the ending of this film. Because I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say that Stephen King finally got the ending he wanted after all of these years. I just tripped over the camera. Say hi to Mosley. Sorry about that. This movie is so great. And if you didn't love it and you haven't read The Shining book, I think that's why. Like, honestly, go back, read The Shining, watch The Shining movie, and then read Doctor Sleep, and then watch Doctor Sleep. And I think that you will come out of it a complete different viewpoint. I think it's a shame that people that like The Shining movie watched it and were like, oh, that kind of sucked, when it's so much more than that. And if you love horror and you love The Shining book, I think that you'll see something so beautiful in this movie that other people may have missed. That's my take on that. Okay, Alien is boring. Oh, this one got me right in the heart. No, Alien is one of the best horror films ever. The set design on that movie, there's one point of the movie that I kind of roll my eyes at every time, and it's when the guy's dressed up in the alien suit and he's like, you guys know what I mean? That part of the scene, I'm like, okay, if you guys just cut this out, this would be honestly a perfect film. But I don't think this movie is boring at all. I think this movie is fantastic. I don't know how anybody thinks it's boring, but to each their own opinion, you know? It's all good. The Final Destination series, excluding the fourth installment, is amazing. I think this is kind of true. Like, it's a unique concept. It's entertaining, good kills. I mean, yeah, they're entertaining movies. I go back and watch these every once in a while. I like this because it's like, it's not like it's the best series in the world. It's just like, this is good for what it is, and I think that's true. This one I like. The scariest character in Pet Sematary is Zelda. I'm assuming they're talking about the movie here. And the book. 1000% agree. Particularly in the movie, I think the antagonist in the book is death as a whole. You know what I mean? Because it's like such a, I talked about this a few videos ago, but it's just like such a heartbreaking story about grief and loss and stuff like that. But in the movie, yeah, 1000% Zelda, the most terrifying. Gage walking up to me, a 1-foot child, I will punt the living fuck out of that kid. Yeah, not scared of him. I agree with this. Zelda is definitely a more terrifying character in the movie. The book is just too vivid for me to pick one thing that really terrifies me, but the movie, yeah, absolutely, Zelda is terrifying. 15, Jack Nicholson being cast as Jack in The Shining ruined the movie. Before all of you Kubrick fans grab your pitchforks and start freaking out, I think I know what this person is talking about. So I did a The Shining movie versus book. I will leave that linked down below as well. I think what they're saying is that in the book, Jack and his relationship with Danny is so different. He's a loving and doting father. He loves his son. Their relationship is very beautiful. He's not just like crazy from the get-go. And so in the book, it's more of the effects of the hotel on the father that drives him to do what he does versus like just being nuts from the beginning. And I think that that is a huge difference, and part of the reason why Stephen King hated the movie so much is because it is. They're all very different characters. The story's different. However, I do think that you can love both, and I do. I just see them as two separate entities. I mean, they are vastly different to like the ending, you know, the endings, one ends in fire, one in ice. Like it's so, they're so different. So I'm gonna leave that video link down below if you guys want more of my opinions, but I will say that I absolutely love both of these, and I think for the Kubrick movie, I don't think that Jack Nicholson ruined The Shining. I think that that movie is fantastic. I just think that it's kind of like a separate entity from The Shining book, and I look at them in very different ways, but I absolutely love and adore both of them. 16, the real villain in Jaws is the mayor, not the shark. I think this is also more evident in the book. I think that there's more about the mayor and the city and like how the city puts profits over their community in the book than there are in the movie. But I mean, yeah, obviously he's one of the villains, but also, you know, the shark that's gobbling people up is a villain too. But again, the book and the movie are very different, so I guess it depends what he's talking about, or he or she. It just says the shark was just being a shark. Yeah, in the movie he's literally jumping on boats to devour people, so no, he's not just being a shark. But yeah, I agree that the mayor is definitely one of the villains. Now this one I can't comment on because I've never seen. It says one of the most brilliant horror films ever made is Coraline, and I have heard people talk about how great this movie is. I've got to watch it, but yeah, I've never seen it. Isn't it a kid's movie or just a dark one? The picture that they show here is very creepy, so maybe I should dive into that. The next one also I've never seen. Grave Encounters seems like a dumb movie, but it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I've never seen it, so maybe I should give this one a try. 19, James Wan is the best horror director right now. Let me look at his IMDb page. Let me see what he's directed. Yeah, I'm gonna say no. I mean, he has great films that he's directed, don't get me wrong, but the best director, like these are the words that bother me. One of the best, sure, yeah, absolutely. But I think he has hits and misses. I'll say that. I would say that Mike Flanagan is more consistent for what I look for in a horror movie. 20, The Boy is the most original, underrated horror film to come out in the last 5 years. Incorrect. This movie is wildly ridiculous. They add one character in the like last 20 minutes of the film just to be murdered. The entire concept is weird. No, I'm gonna disagree. I did not like this film. Yeah, the twist ending I guess is unexpected, but just like the logistics of this film, I just did not. I disagree. And finally, gory torture porn movies might not be good, but it's fun to be grossed out sometimes. Yeah, of course. Sometimes you gotta watch some disgusting horror films. Depends what you're in the mood for, what you're feeling. Obviously, they're not films that you look for when you want something like deep and meaningful. But you know, if you're in just to have a bloody good time, yeah, turn on a good torture porn movie. And those were controversial horror opinions that might just offend some people. So let me know what you guys think about this type of video. Let me know what you guys think about all of these comments, and if you agree or disagree with anything I said. I think that this will be an interesting conversation to have in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you Sundays and Tuesdays with more horror videos. Bye guys!